Good evening, folks. Welcome back to the farm. We are back on the Farmall Cub tractor. So if you're interested in the restoration that we're doing on here, stick around and you can follow along. So the reason we're doing this at night, because it's one, that's cooler, and two, I have to load this stuff up in the truck so I can take it in the morning. Remember last time we did the wheels and the tires and the painting and the front end there. So now we're going to concentrate on the back end. We've got the tires pulled off of the final drives here. And the tires are what we're going to take in the morning. We have to get the old tires removed. And then we're going to bring the wheels home, clean them up and paint them. And the tires actually should already be in, the rear tires. And they can mount those up. And then we can bring those back home and put those on. And then we're a rolling machine. And we can get our tractor pulled into the shop where we can work on it when it's raining and stuff like that. So my plan, the next plan here, is I want to remove the fenders, remove all the pieces that come off the platform here. I believe even the platform comes up. And then from about here back, we're going to paint everything back here. We're going to paint the final drives, all these parts. And then everything back here is painted once we get the rear tires back on. And then we got to only concentrate on from here to here. Once we get into the shop, we'll pull the sheet metal off the top. I was unaware till the other day that the hoods and the fuel tank are one piece, unlike the A that I used to have where you could take the hood off. But there's no fuel in there, so that'll be pretty lightweight. So that's the plan. Here's the two tires here. The tire store said they could put these on the truck machine and remove these. They don't have to have their tractor tire guy do it. They have a wheel machine for big rigs. So hopefully the machine that they have, this hole's big enough for the stem to come through. If not, they'll have to figure something else out. You can see these center discs really need to be cleaned up. And then the outer rims also. The outer rims get painted silver. And then the center of the rim get painted red, the dish portion. I think the silver, the color is called Argent Silver. And you can go to the IH dealership and get it. Now I wanted to find a tread pattern similar to these, where it's got the little hook in the tread like that. Because I believe that was what the original tires look like. But I was unable to find any tires with that pattern. So what we're getting is more of a traditional pattern, and then it's got little like notches or cutouts on the inside of these outer treads. They're a little wider, and they'll have like a notch cut in them here. But you'll see those once we get them mounted. Now the center dish unbolts with 4 bolts from the wheel itself, so that'll make painting very easy. We won't have to mask anything off. Now here's the wheel weights off of the rear tires. They're just bolted with 4 bolts onto that dish portion. They've got that same cup of the dish portion, and they marry right in there with 4 big long carriage bolts. But we'll clean these up and paint them. I'm not going to, however, put them back on right away. I'm going to put the tires and wheels on the tractor without these weights for the time being, so it's just a little bit lighter to deal with. My buddy Matt says I'll be sorry if I don't put them back on, because it's going to ride a lot better with that weight back there. But I posed that question. I mean, if it's just going to be like a parade tractor and we're not going to be needing a lot of traction or anything like that, do we really need the weight? But I did realize when he said that he's got a point, that the weight may keep it from bouncing on the rear treads. Now these tires or wheels are designed, you can see the cup in these wheels. You can mount these wheels either cup side in or cup side out, and that changes the width of your tractor. When I pulled these off, they were dish side in, which gives you more width on your tractor. If you turn the wheel around, make it dish side out, that brings the wheel up closer to the fender, makes for a narrower tractor if you need that. However, it makes it more tippy when it's narrow, so I will probably put these wheels back on with the dish side in as they came off. So we're all loaded up and done tonight, so next time you see us, it'll be tomorrow. We'll be dropping these tires off. Good evening, folks. It's the next night. We're back out here on the Cub. I took the wheels and old tires into the tire shop this morning, but they were unable to get the old tires off today. They didn't get to it. So we weren't able to bring the wheels back home and start cleaning those up. So what I'm going to do is we're going to start stripping down the rear platform of the tractor. I brought out some quart-sized Ziploc bags. I'm labeling all the bolts as they come out. So we're going to take the seat off. We're going to take the battery box off. We're going to undo the positive ground wire there because it's not correct. And then any other thing we can take off. Originally I was going to take the fenders off, and I may still do it, but what I'm worried about is the bolts that hold the fender on actually hold the final drive to the rear axle here. So I'm worried that if I break all that loose, we might start getting leaks, but hopefully if I do it, everything's tight enough to where we're not going to cause a problem. But there's literally 5 bolts that hold this final drive on that actually go through the fender as well. So we may or may not do that. But we're going to start stripping things down. Well, I think we just dodged a major bullet. When I took the bolts out of here, the lock washers are breaking. Well, this piece of lock washer went down into that hole. And I know there's gears and such down in here. That would have been bad, bad, bad. So I went and got my magnet, my big strong magnet, put a piece of metal on the end, got down there and grabbed it and pulled it up far enough where I could grab it with my tweezers, and we got it out of there. That would have really caused me a lot of stress having that thing down in there like that. I just noticed the seat post has 4 holes, so when we put it back on, instead of using these 2, we can move the post to the rear and catch these 2 holes, and we'll get a little extra leg room. So this battery cable here is the wrong cable. It's not supposed to come outside the box. There's a braided cable that actually connects right here to the same hole, but it stays inside the box. It doesn't come out. The only battery cable that comes out is the negative that goes in here. The ground goes to the positive. This is a 6-volt positive ground. And then obviously we want to replace this aging thing here. 6-volt does not like old cables, so these cables will most likely go in the garbage. Our battery box bolts go into the axle. They're threaded into it. And the heads on these things are absolutely toast. So we're going to try to get a wrench on these things. If we can't get a wrench on them, we'll try some vice grips maybe. And if that's not going to work, we'll maybe cut a slot in the top of the head to put a big screwdriver on, try to break it loose that way. We can't just cut them off because the studs go down in there. We need to get those out. We've got this set of bolt extractors. You can see it grips on the flat side of the bolt. So we're going to give this a try. So that didn't work. So what we did is we took our impact socket, what I believe to be the correct size, and we drove it on there with a hammer to get it as tight as we could. So now we'll try to use the impact to get it off. Look at that. Alright, we're running out of options and daylight. We've tried everything to get these last two back bolts out. But the next thing we're going to try is the cutoff wheel. We're going to flatten two sides of the head of that bolt enough to where we can get a wrench on a couple good surfaces and then try to bust those loose. Well, that didn't work, and vice grips didn't work, so now we're going to try a little heat. Well, we got the battery box out of the way, so maybe now we can get a grip on them. Well, I'm out of patience and daylight, so we're going to call it a night. We'll see you back tomorrow. Alright, it's the next day and it's time to get serious. So when all else fails, this is what we're going to do. I've cleaned the top of these old bolts up. So we're going to take these really big nuts that we have and we're going to weld those right to the heads of those old bolts. So it gives us a good surface to grip on. So hopefully the MIG welder is going to make it out here. I've already checked. I made sure that these edges of the bolts will clear the bottom of the battery box. So let's try to get our welder out here. So we got lucky. We're using literally every inch of our cord, 220 cord coming out here. And then with the length of our leads, we were able to make it over here. So let's get these welded up. Got them welded. We're going to let those cool off for a bit, get the right size socket wrench out here, try to bust these babies loose. While that cools, we're going to go ahead and take our connector arm off here and pull our lifting mechanism off of the rear axle here. Get that out of the way. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this 90-degree gearbox off. Looks like we have a leaky PTO seal in there. So once you pull this gearbox off, you should just have the standard PTO shaft sticking out underneath that. Alright, we're going to give them bolts a bump. I'm going to hit them real easy at first because I don't want to snap them off. But hopefully this is going to work. Cross your fingers. Yay! Look at that. Well, that worked out great. Maybe I should go to drastic measures earlier on. I was happy to see that the corrosion from the battery pan did not get down through to the platform. And you can see here that our battery box is pretty well shot. But has anybody got a need for some 3/8 bolts with 15/16 heads on them? Let me know. I think the next thing we're going to work on is getting our floor plate or deck plate off. There's bolts all along the whatever they call this, transmission or whatever. And then there's a couple of bolts out here on the fender. And then we'll have to remove these bolts back out. I just got those in there so nothing, no dirt and stuff gets down in those holes, because those holes go all the way through into that cavity in there, into that axle. And then we have a bolt here we got to take out. So hopefully all those bolts will cooperate and we'll get this floor deck out. I'm going to have to also undo the brake and the clutch levers mechanisms, because those are hanging on the platform as well. Well, we were on the struggle bus for some time getting our platform off, so we got her done. Hardest part was getting to this bolt here, but going back together, that'll be a little bit easier because we'll be going the other direction. But you can see now this is going to be so much easier to paint. So what we're going to do now, I think we're going to try to pull these fenders off. These bolts, these 4 bolts here, go all the way through with nuts on the other side, and they're the actual final drive bolts that hold the final drive onto the rear axle. Whereas this one has just bolts that go in. There's no nuts, they're threaded right into the casting here. So this side will be much easier to take off. I don't know if we're going to get oil when we take this bottom bolt out or not, but we'll see. Well, I would say we have her pretty well stripped. That's going to make things a whole lot easier cleaning this mess up and painting, and all those pieces are going to paint a lot easier not being on the tractor. So basically what we're going to do is going to paint up here to the dashboard, and then we'll do the rest of this once we tear this down. Do a little motor work if needed and seal some things up and get that area painted. We have some seals here that we need to address. The inner spindle seals down in here, I guess is what you call them. All this oil here is from a missing bolt that was here on the top. There was no bolt, so oil was able to seep out of the transmission area, or whatever they call that. So that's the bulk of that oil. So not a lot to clean up. I was going to take the steering tower off, but I decided to leave it on. It'll be easy enough to paint in place. It'll be a little harder to clean up, but we'll get it done. So there she is. Next time you see it, back part will be all painted up. We'll have the tires on. We'll have all the pieces that we took off remounted on there, and she'll be looking nice. Well folks, thanks for hanging out with us again today. I hope you're enjoying this restoration project here as much as I am. I love tinkering with this kind of stuff, and I can't wait until she's just beautiful sitting here. So until next time, stay safe, stay healthy. We love you guys. It's going to be a bit before we get another Farmall video here, or Cub video. So we'll do some other stuff in the meantime. So love you guys. See you on the next one.